I could see the outline of a crib in the front in this inferno. And made my way over to the crib, reached in and found an infant.
Oh my God.
Brought the infant out. As I came back in, another crew had met up with us, and I had missed another child that was on the bed.
I do not know you, but I am your brother.
You do not know me, but I am your protector.
I will run into a burning building to save your life.
Though I do not know your name, I will take a bullet for you.
Though we've never met,
I believe in duty and sacrifice
of self.
Your family is my family.
Is my family. Your life is my duty.
What's going on, guys? Time for another episode of Behind the Uniforms. If you've never seen the show before, the way that it works is that we invite veterans, first responders, emergency responders onto the show. They tell you about a good day, about a bad day. We sip a little bit of bourbon. I need to apologize in advance for any noise going on upstairs. We're building a brand new studio, so any construction, I'll own that. And again, if you've never seen this before, we keep a bottle of whiskey and a glass out here at all times in honor of the men and women who paid the ultimate sacrifice and will never be able to tell their stories. So without further ado, tell them who you are while I pour a little New York
Thank
bourbon.
you very much. My name is Guy Gioeli. I'm a captain firefighter paramedic from the city of Schenectady, New York, and I just recently retired in January.
Hudson baby,
Yeah.
because this is, America and
That's
New York
right.
at the same time. So first of all, cheers to you.
Salute.
Thank you for your service,
Thank
sir.
you.
It's a delightful way to start 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm just kidding, it's not 7 o'clock in the morning. So a little bit of background and context for these guys on how you got to where you are now.
Sure. So I joined the Navy right after high school, and I became a recon Marine corpsman. And I was there for quite a while. Served at 1st Marine Recon Division, the company, Recon Company. I left there. My father was a firefighter. He worked his way up to a chief officer position. And I was coming home from the Middle East. And he said, hey, the test is coming up. Why don't you take it? Because you're at a crossroads right now.
Sure.
You can go back. You can continue what you're doing now, which I absolutely love that job. And the men that I worked with, they're phenomenal. Or you could take the test, come home and take the test and see how you do. And talk about getting on the fire department. And I did. I took it. My brother took it as well. Actually, my brother's deployed right now. He's a captain in the Army as well.
Good man.
And a captain on the fire department. So Josh and I took the test, and we scored really high. We tied for number 1. And I went back, and I was at the time, I was like, hey, look, you can re-enlist for another 4. I was at 8 years at that point. I was like, no, I think it's time to get out. And actually, they were like, yeah, if you got a chance to become a fireman, get out. A lot of guys wanted to become cops or firemen that I worked with.
I'll continue that service.
Yeah, just continue on with it. And so I got out. I became a paramedic. You had to become a paramedic in our job, which my medical background in the military, it wasn't easy, but it helped out quite a bit.
Sure.
And then, I started my career as a firefighter paramedic in the city of Schenectady.
Awesome. So we're going to talk a little bit about this product, but first, you want to share with everyone good day or bad day? Where do you want to begin?
Let's say a good day. Good day. Yeah.
Go for it.
So I guess graduation from the academy with my brother and my father there. My uncle was also on the job and a cousin as well, so it was kind of a family thing.
It's awesome.
Whenever, growing up and going to the station to see my father, that was always big for us. He never took his work home, though. And he also was in the military. He was a highly decorated Vietnam vet. Did the same thing when he got out, became a fireman. But never talked about either job, either what he did in the military. And he really didn't talk about the fire department when we were growing up. It was just something that we went to see him at the station when he was there. And if he came home smelling like a wood stove, just to leave him alone so he could sleep for the day.
Sure.
And but when my daughter started to come see me at the station, those were good days.
That's super cool.
And dinner time, dinner, lunchtime at in the station, when all the guys were able to get together, because we were a very busy department. We were still are a very busy department. and just the laughter. And I worked with some amazing people. I said worked with because we talked, I just retired.
Man,
January.
it's funny because I was doing a podcast interview right before you got here, and a guy who was interviewing me asked me about peace. And he said, do you ever think that there'll be peace in the world or peace in America? And the point that I brought up, I said unequivocally, no. I mean, look at the history of the world. There's no such thing as world peace. But peace is that moment that we find in our own lives, in those moments, right? In that moment where your kid comes out and spending time with you and the rest of the department, and those memories are invaluable.
Yeah, and those were good days, and like I said, some of the things the crews that I worked with were phenomenal. The guys, I mean, I could think of a couple guys right off the top of my head that you watch change. They were goofballs in the station. And as a captain, sometimes it was a little difficult, working your way up as a lieutenant. But
Sure.
And one in particular, I remember I was assigned to a station engine 4. And it was the second time I was assigned there. When I became a captain, I had to go back to that position. And they're like, oh, you're going to be with this crew and you might not get along with this guy. And him and I, with the first day, clicked like that. It was just one of those things. And we had such a good time. But when you had to be serious, they were the best. The best, yeah. I mean, and this one in particular, that guy himself, he was my driver, my engineer, pump operator, probably one of the best that you could ever work with. And he was a paramedic at one point, and he decided not to keep doing it, but it didn't matter because he still, every call that involved an EMS call, he was right there. And usually 2 or 3 steps ahead of the other medics. So that was impressive. And to watch, like I said, watch guys changed. I watched one man when he came on, real pain in the ass, And Jack had a call, a fire on Alvey Street, and he could not remove a woman from a window. And she died. She burned. And the guys that came up onto the roof, it was a second floor, like flat roof, they brought a chainsaw with them. And he said to me, it was after that moment that he decided that he never wanted to be in a position where he did not know what to do, but not think that far ahead to grab the proper equipment they needed for that. It wasn't his fault, and he wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
But from that day forward, I mean, he was right there. He was awesome.
That's
and
incredible.
we laughed. We just laughed in the station. But like I said, when it was time to get serious, it was time to get serious.
So tell me about a bad day. And I'm sure between your service in the military and your service in the department, there have been many. But are there any in particularly that jump out?
Anything that involved a child. Yeah.
Especially as a father.
Yeah, and that's when it got really hard. Yeah, the abuse, murder. We had a rash of teen suicides one year, and that was difficult. But no, anything that involved a child. And in particular, not my last fire, but I had a fire a few years ago on Hewlett Street. And I was with this guy, Brian, the guy that everybody thought we wouldn't get along. And we'd actually had 2 fires that night before this. And we were getting cleaned up from the second fire. And Brian and I got in the rig with a guy named David. And we were missing another guy from our crew. So it was the 3 of us. And the radio just was blowing up. They needed rigs immediately. And we answered, and they're like, we have a confirmed fire on Hewlett Street, which was literally 3 blocks from where we were. And it was early in the morning, probably 2 or 3, I think. And when we got there, I remember looking at Brian, and he just looked at me and said, this is going to be a bad one. And it was. I mean, we got there, and it looked like it was daylight. It was so bad, it was blowing out the first floor. So David and I made our way up the stairwell, and somebody had thrown a Molotov cocktail into the hallway of the house.
Jeez.
And the door, I remember the hose got kinked at one point, and David had to go down and, unhook it. And as he was coming back up, I could look, and I had not put my mask fully on. And on the way up, it was just nothing but a wall of fire. As we hit it, and then we were able to stop for a second, it lit back up again.
Jeez.
So looking into this inferno, into this house, I'm thinking, okay, Dave, hold on to my tank. And as we go in, I'm going to push the fire up the front of the building, 'cause that's where it was, and give the other crews that are coming up the rear of the building, because that's where a majority of the sleeping, the bedrooms are in these 2 family houses in the rear. I said, we'll be able to protect them from as they come up. And as we were going in, people were screaming that there were kids in the house.
Oh, jeez.
So as I went in, I could see the outline of a crib in the front in this inferno. And made my way over to the crib, reached in and found an infant.
Oh my God.
Brought the infant out. As I came back in, another crew had met up with us, and I had missed another child that was on the bed. So I linked up with this other crew, and one of the guys, Tony Klaus, he was a lieutenant. Tony had injured himself. He broke his ribs on the way in. He fell through a stair, I think. So we're pushing our way in, and we found a room off to the side, and I go into it, and there's this large man. There's another child. And she was gone.
Jeez.
But the decision had to be made who to take. And as I picked him up, my light caught the face of a child that was underneath him. So I said, Tony, pass her out. We're yelling. You can't see in a fire. Yeah. It's not like you see in a movie. So he passed her out, and I remember seeing her face. She did survive. The man did not. And him laying on top of her protected her. She was burned severely. Actually, her name is Sapphire. A few years ago, she had this Christmas card writing thing, program. That was hard. I think the cumulative effect of everything in my military time, actually, as well, I started a SWAT medic program with the department and our police department. And just doing all of that and seeing what I saw, I think after that event, it hit me really hard. Yeah. So a year later, she had lost her arm. She had lost her leg. I think she was burned on 80% of her body, if not more.
Jeez.
Her aunt takes care of her. And she came back to the station, and she went to visit her at the station. She was dressed in a princess outfit for Halloween. And I couldn't go out there and look at her.
Oh my God.
So the summer before I was injured, I saw the aunt at an event. So I went up to her and I talked to her. And I said to her, hey, listen, your brother died saving that child. That was hard. So, and it wasn't the first time that I had done that. The very first person I ever found in a fire was an 8-year-old boy. Jeez. So, yeah, anything that involved a child was tough.
You and I talked in the beginning a little bit before we started rolling the camera about post-traumatic stress.
Yes.
Talk to me about your feelings on that, because
Sure.
you have very different perspective as someone who's served overseas
Mm-hmm.
and come back and really experienced a different type of post-traumatic stress. It's not, we talk a lot with emergency responders
Mm-hmm.
and those in the military about you're overseas and an IED goes off, and that one incident
Mm-hmm.
can change you for a lifetime. But in emergency response, it could be the cumulative impact
Right.
of incidents like this.
Right.
Share with everyone your perspective.
You know, just to back up just a little bit with my father one time. And he came, when we were coming back from the Middle East, he met with us. And I remember him talking to the group of guys that I worked with. And these were, when you want to talk about some of the elite of the Marine Corps, they were at. And he could hold their attention. And a lot of them were asking him, hey, Frank, what can I do? When I want to get out, Chief, help me. What, should I become a cop? Should I become a fireman? And he told him this. He said, when I got out of the military, I was lost for a little bit because I missed that action. Sure. So I became a fireman. He said, the only difference is you guys went on a patrol on your deployment. You would go on patrols. To become a cop or a fireman, it's like you're patrolling every single time you go into work. Sure. Is a new patrol. You have no idea what's going to happen that day. And yes, I am a big proponent of guys getting help. I sought help through a private organization called Headstrong with PTSD. And it's military. And at first I started to go to the VA, and it just wasn't helping. And I was afraid because, like we talked before, I had another job. I got another job during my time at the fire department. I was asked to get to work at Homeland Security. I was afraid that if anybody found out that this was going on, it would affect my promotions. It could affect me later on. So I sought private help. It helped me quite a bit. And you're right. It's the cumulative effect of everything that'll hit you hard. And I don't laugh at guys. For me, and we share the same values with some. My faith had helped me through a lot of stuff. I had lost my way, but came back, and that too helped me. But yes, I think that I tried to bring it up one time, and a comment was made, oh, what do you want people to get disabilities, mental health disabilities to get off the job? I said, no, that's not it. You're right. Somebody sees an IED go off here, but how many times did this fireman see this many kids that were burned? Yeah. Or this EMT take care of this many abused children, or paramedic? Or how many times have you gone into a house with people screaming over you as you're trying to either work on their child or their father or mother? And yeah, it will sneak up on you. And it'll nail you, and it did to me.
You brought up the point about the concern and the fear of getting treatment.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've heard again and again and again. I can't tell you how many guys have come in here and said, I'm with such and such department, and I was in a dark place in the middle of the night, and a buddy picked me up and brought me out of state to get help because I was afraid that I would lose my ability to provide for my family.
Yeah.
And so, you hear all different bureaucrats talking about how we need to provide support, we need to provide resources, but when it comes to the rubber meeting the road and being able to provide that support and resources, but the assurance that you can still provide for your families, we still have a little bit of a disconnect.
We do.
And quite a ways to go in society.
Yeah, we really do. And some guys will look at it as weak.
Sure.
They're wrong.
Agreed.
They're wrong. If you look at the divorce rate, the abuse of alcohol, drug abuse now,
And ultimately the suicide rate.
So
let's lighten it up.
Yeah, definitely.
Talk about what you're doing now.
So, like I said, working at Homeland Security through New York State Department of Homeland Security. Working there with a great bunch of people. And we helped design through a man named Rick Matthews brought us all together. And I was vetted into the program by somebody I actually trained with in the military. He was one of my instructors. Brought us together, and we created programs around aggressive deadly behavior, the active shooter or the active killer. Yeah. We designed these programs to with the rescue task force in mind. And we noticed a huge gap of time. Everybody thinks that, of course, a contact team of police officers are going to enter right away. But as they're going through this building, their job is to stop the threat.
Right.
Because every shot you hear is a potential life being taken.
Yep.
They're not going to stop and help somebody. Possibly afterwards, they can go back if they have the equipment to do so.
Right.
So to bring in EMS requires them to be brought in under protection. Mm-hmm. They're not just going to rush in.
Right.
You know, if you have a massive amount of people just rushing in, you have no control, span of control over that area. So we developed this rescue task force method, and like I said, there was a huge gap. So there's 5 of us. A company had reached out to one of the guys and asked him, hey, look, we want to build trauma kits, but we want some technology introduced into them. So my friend Matt asked me to be involved in it, and we came up with an app. You can either download to your phone. We have a kit that has a tablet inside of it that when you open it up and it activates, it will walk you through the treatment of trauma,
Wow.
medical. And when we started, it took quite a while to write. It took a year of just writing an algorithm.
Sure.
And then when we did our first round of beta testing, it was interesting. We had a school district come in Rochester. We're based out of Rochester. And their principal and their superintendent were watching. And we had the role players from our training center in Utica come out from Homeland Security, and our makeup artists there. And they would moulage up these patients. And I had a room with 2 patients, one with a gunshot wound to the arm and one with a gunshot wound to the chest. And we gave the teachers a first aid kit. It's just their one that they would have in the school. And you'd say to them, okay, you have 5 minutes. The national average is 9 to 11 minutes before EMS can arrive. So you have 5 minutes to treat these people in this room. Go. It was an eye-opener.
Sure.
I had some people just take gauze and hold it on the person's arm and look at the other person and say, I don't know what to do for you. They got so caught up in the moment.
Sure.
Then we introduced the kit with the app. And we were watching, back up a little bit, we had kids go through as well. And one kid took his medical kit out, and the person's laying there, she's bleeding out of her leg, and he started to arrange everything on the table. And our medical director, Joe Bart, said to him, what are you doing? He goes, I don't know what to do for her, but I do know that if I lay everything out, that when the EMTs come, it'll be nice and neat for them to grab off the table. Right? So
It's pretty smart.
when we gave them the app, we had this gigantic success rate. It gives them something to focus on, not a bad tunnel vision, but it gives them, okay, all the chaos going around, let me sit here, let me see what I have to do,
Yep.
right? It'll instruct you, put your gloves on. There's a body image that shows up on the screen. If they're bleeding, touch where they're bleeding. If they're bleeding on the arm or the leg, it'll tell you grab the tourniquet, and it'll show you where it is in the kit. And then how to put the tourniquet on. And it does that for a ton of different emergencies, whether it is trauma or it's medical. And we had quite a bit of success in the field as well. This is our first year, or full year of being on the market. We've had a good success rate and some really big clients that it was amazing. We had one client in New York. I went to see him on a Monday. Oh, we'll think about it. It's a big, big client. We got called on Thursday. One of their executives kept telling his assistant, I'm having chest pain. I don't know what to do. He dropped, went into cardiac arrest. No one on the entire floor knew how to do CPR. This will do CPR with you. It'll instruct you how to do CPR and actually give you the tone to do it to proper depth and rate.
Wow.
No one knew how to do CPR. No one knew where the AED was, except for one guy who had to come down to get it. And by the time EMS got there, because there's a horizontal and then a vertical response to get to him, it was 21 minutes.
Jeez. Did he make it?
No.
Yeah, I'll bet.
So this bridges the gap. And if you think about, schools, everybody's talking about these school events, right? And I know we discussed a little earlier about your program with schools and making these schools safe and hardening up their soft targets. We have to harden them up, right? So if something happens, and say there is a lockdown, and a teacher or an administrator is now stuck in a room with a child that's injured.
Sure.
What do they have to help them with?
Nothing. Right.
And if they have the fanciest kid on the wall,
But don't know how to use
but
it.
don't know how to use it, unfortunately, we were seeing that with some of the guys that we'd have come through our program. We train them, some of the best instructors in the world. Would train these guys, and then they'd come back a couple months. You put them under stress again, and wait, hold on a second. All right, am I going to use this first? And it's just because they're not doing it all the time.
Right.
You get a CPR class, I think the first 6 months, there's a 60% fail rate.
Jeez.
And after a year, it's almost 90%. So people forget,
Right.
because they're not doing it all the time.
Thank God they're not doing it all the
I
time.
know. Yeah, I know. Leave it,
How can people learn more?
So our company is Mobilize Rescue. You can go to mobilizerescue.com.
Awesome.
It's available to the public. We have different kits.
Awesome.
We have our big kit that is like an EMT in a box. We have our public access kit that has multiple ones inside of it. And for institutions that get those, we give the app to everybody.
Awesome. That's incredible, man. Yeah. Well, I think it's time to pass this along to the task force to look at this on a national level with the schools. But, brother, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing a drink, sharing some stories.
Yeah.
Guys, it's going to take you 2 seconds to share this video. And isn't it cool that by sharing this video, you may end up just contributing to some lives being saved? So thanks for hitting that share button. Thanks for watching. God bless America.